If a fighting game is played competitively in any capacity, then there's a character that's bound to appear no matter what happens. That character is the low tier. A character that, while not necessarily unviable, still has weaker tools compared to most of the characters in the game. Now, the reason a character is low tier can vary greatly from game by game and even from character to character. Some characters lack specific tools to deal with the higher tiered characters, some simply have a lot of bad tools that they have to deal with alongside their good tools, and some are just straight up bad on purpose. Of course, naturally, platform fighters are also no stranger to low tier characters. In fact, a low tier platform fighter character just dropped last month, and he may look familiar to a few of you.
Hello! I like money!
Mr. Eugene Harold Krabs, yes that is his full name, was released in Nick All-Star Brawl 2 on February 14th of this year, to a lot of hype actually. When he first released, and even now, people consider him to be a very creative and fun character to play, with a lot of inner depth to his moveset. According to a beta tester, his moveset was based on both Wario and Holy Order's Soul, which is definitely a unique combination to say the least. Yet despite getting buffed in the recent patch, Mr. Krabs is still seen as a low tier character currently. And weirdly enough, a lot of people think the reason that is because Mr. Krabs is oddly balanced? Let's take a closer look. So let's get this out of the way. Mr. Krabs' centralizing gimmick is his money meter. When Mr. Krabs hits the opponent, money will start spawning on screen that he can collect. When he gains enough money, he will add a level to his meter, which improves pretty much everything in his kit. This includes his run speed, air mobility, and special attacks, as well as aerials and pretty much everything else in his kit. He can also use his down special to dig for gold, or strong down air to bring it closer to him. In the air, you can use a shovel as a spike, and at level 3, which is the strongest level, it turns into his first dime, an extremely powerful finisher. At level 2 and 3, Mr. Krabs is proficient at comboing, and especially edge guarding with his really meaty forward air. His side special is also extremely fast at these levels and an extremely good combo tool. So yeah, Mr. Krabs seems like a really strong character. What's wrong with it? Oh. That's not good. If Mr. Krabs loses a stock, his money meter resets entirely. This means that he has to start collecting money again, which can make his disadvantage state atrocious. He also has to continue to do this while being stuck on his crappy level 0 mobility again. First time also resets your meter, which makes it way less useful than it seems to be. Though this makes way more sense obviously, no pun intended. Mr. Krabs' forward air hitbox also changes depending on what level he's at, which can make combos more inconsistent. The opponent can also steal his money, which can make fighting zoners extremely difficult for him, especially when he's forced to play the matchup with no mobility buffs. And of course, he won't be a NASB 2 character without having some random bugs littered in here and there. His strong attacks also range from being extremely slow to extremely inconsistent, which wouldn't be so bad if their kill power wasn't below average. This makes Mr. Krabs heavily reliant on side B and forward air confirms, which, as I've mentioned before, changes depending on how much money he has, which means you always have to be aware of how much money you have at any given time. So with all this in mind, Mr. Krabs is surely a bad character, right, and deserving of low tier. Except not really, actually. Mr. Krabs is a demon at level 2 and 3 with his combos and edge guarding, as mentioned before, and he has a lot of tools to get money faster and easier. In fact, in the latest patch, they've actually made money easier to get. Dealing with level 0 mobility does suck, but one could argue it's a good trade-off for how strong he is in level 2 and 3, right? Right? I think it's finally time to discuss Mr. Krabs' biggest weakness, which isn't inherently his fault. Everyone in NASB 2 is overtuned. Well, okay, except for these three guys. A lot of NASB 2 characters have an extremely oppressive combo game, or generally very strong attacks that can balance out that if they don't have that. Or both, which is honestly true for half the cast. While Mr. Krabs can contend with this just fine at level 2 and 3, he really struggles at level 0 where it counts. Which means that other characters can bully him or just straight up kill him before he can even gain a level. And keep in mind, it resets every single stock. This gives him incentive to camp for money since he is pretty heavy, but with his level 0 mobility, that's a very difficult strategy against some characters. Notably zoners who can just bully him with projectile spam. Also, because of his lack of good strong attacks, Mr. Krabs is heavily reliant on edge guarding and ledge trapping. Something that isn't exactly difficult to do to him. Overall, Mr. Krabs seems to be balanced to a fault. Even though he can gain money to become a better character, he's so outclassed at level 0 that it's very difficult to get there at all. But I don't think this necessarily had to be this way for him. In fact, there's a character that's already in the game that I'd argue is Mr. Krabs' design philosophy done right. Plankton, like level 0 Krabs, has pretty slow mobility, as well as having a lot of end lag and generally being combo food. However, the main reason this balances out is one big word: damage. A lot of Plankton's moves, notably his neutral B, covers his opponent in damaging sauce, which allows him to inflict more damage onto his opponent. This means that Plankton can inflict a huge amount of damage in a short amount of time, which is something that Mr. Krabs admittedly struggles a bit with. Plankton also has a ton of tricks to improve his mobility, and he's an absolute beast at edgeguarding and ledge trapping. However, I think the big difference between these two is that while Mr. Krabs has to earn money in order to be up to snuff with the rest of the cast, Plankton is that way already. Since Plankton's stats inherently don't change at all, he can be played the exact same way during the entire match, and he doesn't have to worry about building up a money meter in order to contest against some of the characters in the game. He already does more damage by default. Now I don't think Plankton is leagues better than Krabs, he's only 3 spots up on my most recent tier list. But Plankton's moveset simplicity, as well as his massive damage output, allow him to contend with most of the cast in a far better way than Mr. Krabs ever could, while also keeping him balanced. So to answer some glaring questions to close out, is Mr. Krabs low tier? Yes. Is he unviable? Absolutely not. While he's definitely not a super popular tournament character, Mr. Krabs can definitely make work in the right hands, and for many people in the competitive community, he's a very fun secondary character. In the current meta, he might not even be the worst character in the game, as Nigel and Zim are also usually right next to him. As it is right now, Mr. Krabs kinda just seems like a character that's in the wrong game at the wrong time. But with 3 more characters, and hopefully many more patches on the way, that could easily change. As it is right now though, despite his flaws, Mr. Krabs is still an extremely fun character to play in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, and I hope the future holds well for everybody's favorite crustaceous cheapskate. Until then though, my name is Dilly, and thank you for watching.